All right, hello everybody. My name is Justin Carlson with the Justin Carlson Show, and
My name's Jason Dames. I'm with Final Start Fitness.
we wanted to talk to you today about masks and why we may or may not agree with them.
That cracks me up, by the way.
So there's many things being talked about right now with masks and isolation, and you should always wear a mask, and you should do whatever you can to reduce travel and stay at home and not get outside your house and not go outside and stay away from people. And there's so much of that just doesn't make sense to me on different levels other than health. Now, obviously, we have a health expert here, Jason from Final Start Fitness, who can talk a little bit about the health, maybe the benefits or not the negative side of wearing a mask. But I think there's a whole nother side to that. As human beings, we're social creatures. We thrive when we can talk to one another and see one another and see a smile on someone else's face and interact with one another. And I think to prohibit that definitely has a profound effect on us in ways that have nothing to do with physical health.
Yeah, Justin, I think that's a great point. And I think what I would like to accomplish through this video is to maybe give you guys some common sense just approach or just something to think about that maybe you haven't in the past. And you might be the person that's gung-ho on wearing masks, and our goal isn't to downplay that or be offensive, but we want to bring some other, another aspect, I would say bring some points that a lot of people aren't talking about. And maybe you hear some of the stuff that we're talking about today and you're like, oh yeah, I never really thought about that. How masks could have some really negative implications from a societal standpoint and a health standpoint. So I really love that you brought that up. So what would you like to start out with? Anything in particular, Justin? Or
Yeah, I think that we could look at the efficacy of masks. I mean, from long ago, back when Dr. Fauci said, don't wear a mask, and he mentioned that people often touch their mask and touch their face, and then he switched and said that we do need to wear masks, and then all the politicians jumped on board, and now everybody's on board with wearing a mask. And where do we stand? I mean, is it really healthy to wear a mask all the time? Is it really good for our bodies? To me, it seems that if you're like me, you may wear the same mask over and over and over again because you're forced to. And I may have not washed my mask or cleaned it since March when they first said that we needed to wear it. Now, that may or may not be true, and many of you, I'm sure, don't do that, but there's got to be something there with masks. And is it really healthy to wear the mask all the time and be breathing into it and just lay it on your nightstand at night and put it on the next day? I mean, that can't be that great.
Yeah, I think that's a great question to ask. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are out there that you're just not sure what to trust. You're just like, it seems like it would be common sense that if I wear a mask, it's going to be protective from me getting other people infected with the virus. And we're not downplaying that there is a virus by no means. But I think that there's an argument out there that sometimes frustrates me a little bit, Justin. It's that like, hey, you don't care if you don't wear a mask.
Yeah, you could be called a grandma killer or told that, if I see you without a mask, it's because you don't care about everybody else.
Exactly.
I don't know if that's true or not.
And it really could be farthest from the truth. And it's actually, I think, quite opposite. If you just take some common sense approach to from a physiological standpoint, and that's kind of what I would like to do, is just give you another side to that argument. And in reality, I think it's actually could be more dangerous for our overall society and our overall health for people to be wearing a mask on a continual basis. Some of you might be wearing one and you notice that you're getting headaches, and there's a reason for that, right? So if you start having certain responses in the body that aren't normal because of something, you should take cues and listen to what's going on. I tell people this all the time when it comes to losing weight and becoming healthy, is start to get good at listening to the cues your body's giving. But from a physiological standpoint, Justin, I think a lot of people don't realize, and I'd like to bring up a lady from, her name's Tammy Clark. She actually is a big part in Osha. Now, Osha actually has done a lot of studies in terms of the efficacy of masks and whether they what the effect, and they also set regulations and guidelines for contractors and things like that. So she was on being interviewed by Ben Lynch. I'd love to put up the link. I don't know if it's still able even to watch. They might have taken it down. But one of the things that she was talking about is that every single cell in our body requires oxygen for energy metabolism. So when your body is making energy, it requires oxygen. And they have machines that are actually able to test your oxygen levels. And what they saw is that when you're wearing a mask, it reduces the amount of oxygen intake dramatically. So what that means, guys, on a physiological level, if your body cannot make energy properly, then every single cell in the body is going to suffer. And if every single cell is suffering, that means every organ in the body is going to suffer. But what this also does is it puts stress on your immune system. It causes more inflammation in the body. And when you're highly inflamed and your immune system is compromised, you're going to be more susceptible to chronic disease, whether it's a virus or whether it's any other chronic disease out there. And so you have to think about that from a long-term health perspective, but we also need to think about, like you just brought up, we're breathing carbon dioxide inside our mask. We're also exhaling toxins. That it's one of the ways that our body exposes and gets rid of toxins when we exhale. So we have these toxic chemicals that we're exhaling into our mask that are staying there with microbes that are just sitting there just in a big soup pile, right?
Right.
And so we're sitting there touching our mask all day long. If we could, even if we possibly could, not touch our mask the entire day, there's still implications to your overall health, including the stress that it puts on you. You mentioned about people smiling and you be able to interact with people properly, right. And then the fear that it causes. Fear, we know fear, and if you get a chance, I just did some video content on my page, YouTube page, Final Star Fitness, on the physiological responses that stress does in the body. And so the fear and anxiety create stress, which ultimately compromise the immune system further. So these are some pointers that I'd like to maybe give you on the flip side, the other side of it, to realize that, hey, there might be some really ulterior or implications that are really negative to you wearing a mask on a regular basis. And I'd just say, I want to make one more point, physiological, Justin. I know I don't want to ramble on here, but one of the biggest pieces of information as far as the health in the health space for the past decade has been the microbiome, or your gut bacteria inside your gut, and the health of your bacteria and how that plays a role in your metabolism and your overall health. And so we know that it's really, really important to have a really good ecosystem of a diverse amount of different type of bacteria. You don't want to have dysbiosis in the gut, which means you have an imbalance of bad bacteria versus good bacteria. You want good beneficial bacteria to help defend your body when you have some sort of infection or you have a virus or anything of that matter. You want it to be strong and robust. I tell it like this, I tell my son this, Justin, that you want to have strong immune cells in the body like they're the Avengers. And it's a good analogy that he can wrap his mind around, but that way they can attack any type of virus and pounce on it whenever it comes in. And so the gut bacteria is very important. So we're leaving out the equation and a lot of the narrative. We're leaving out having good nutrition, exercise, sleep, staying away from stress, limiting stress, and eliminating toxins. Getting vitamin D, getting out in the sun, walking, having good social interaction. These are things that help boost your immune system, create a robust ecosystem in the gut, and therefore you being overall more healthy, which is going to make you less susceptible, and you're not going to have to worry too much about if something like that if you do have the flu or you have some sort of bug like that.
Yeah, and one of the things I think about too is, okay, so I can put on a mask and I'm totally safe, according to what you hear, right? Just put on a mask, protect others. So I can eat whatever I want. I can have the kind of lifestyle, whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. I can sit on the couch all day. I can watch Netflix. I can be lazy. I can never work out. I can eat whatever I want. As long as I put on the mask, I'm safe, right?
Go to McDonald's.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter. So, I mean, certainly there's got to be more to it than that. And I think that the implication there is that that you are fine as long as you're wearing the mask, and obviously that can't be true all the time.
No, not at all. He made a great point. I mean, we're closing down gyms, we're allowing all the beer and alcoholic places to stay open, and all the fast food restaurants, and oftentimes the people that really get hateful and are the most, I guess they're the most mad and just really act out are ones that, are cramming. You watch them at Walmart and they're overweight and they're putting soda and chips and all that stuff into their cart, and then they get mad at another individual for not wearing a mask, and it's very hypocritical. I would say, because Mike Mutzel is a guy who has a health channel, and he calls it, what we're in, more of a syndemic, where you have this combination of people that are not very healthy, they're overweight, we have an obesity problem, combined with a virus that puts you in a place where you're way more susceptible to be able to have chronic disease. And so it's just a little bit hypocritical. And I would just ask that if you're a person that, is just staunch on wearing a mask, maybe consider these things and not be so hateful, and realize that sometimes maybe people that aren't wearing a mask are doing it for the very purpose of being helping their own health, and actually trying to help other people's health by strengthening our immune system, by creating herd immunity and things like that.
Sure. So in addition to all that, there's got to be other issues with masks. I mean, we're covering our face all day long. And I know for me, I've read many books about how smiling is important. Mm-hmm. And I actually practiced smiling. Back when I was in sales years ago, one of the things that I was taught is that when you smile, people can hear it and they can see it. And we've all heard that smiling makes people feel better, and we're covering all that up. And so there would seem to me that there would be implications socially and philosophically about wearing a mask and covering it up. So another thing that I think about that I would be against on wearing masks all the time, in addition to isolating from everybody else, is that the way God made us, we're social creatures. Mm-hmm. As I said before, we need to get out and we need to mingle, and we need to discuss, and we need to just enjoy one another. And that can't happen when the government's telling us to not do that. And so to me, that there's so much there. And so I think if you look at it from a theological standpoint or a philosophical standpoint, let alone a health standpoint, is that we are shutting down mechanisms within us that urge us to get out and mingle with people, to have conversations with people. Now, you could do this stuff over the phone and over the computer, but it's not the same as being able to interact with someone in person. And certainly there would be a breakdown if you're doing it over the phone all the time. Mm-hmm. But when you can't see somebody's face, and when you are constantly covering that up, let alone the smile that you have, if you're not smiling, that can make you feel poorly. But if you aren't affecting others with your smile, or they're not affecting you with theirs, that can affect you poorly as well. And there's a whole sort of things there that doesn't have anything to do with health. That's more on the mental side that would affect us. And on isolation and staying home and closing down businesses, I can't get on board with that, because theologically, one of the things that we're taught is that you have to go to work to eat. Right? In the Bible, you read principles about how there's things where, the lazy people, perhaps that's not the best way of life. And not saying that you're lazy because your job is shut down, but that's certainly what we're breeding here, is that it's okay to stay at home and the government can just send you money. And so there's a whole side of things with that, with purpose. I mean, we have a purpose in life where there's some purpose that God has called you to. Perhaps you know it, perhaps you don't. And if you can't get out there and work on that purpose and do the things that God made you to do, it affects you negatively, mentally. And for the government to just say, stay at home and we'll send you a check, as you can see if you're paying attention to the news, this is not something that they want temporarily. They want to do that long term with UBI, but that's a different subject. So the reason that I'm against that is I feel that we need to get out and communicate with people and socialize with people and help with our mental health as well as our physical health, stay active, mingle with people, interact, and then chase that purpose. Do what God made you to do. Don't stay inside. Don't not go outdoors. Get out and do what God made you to do. And I think there's a lot there.
Man, there's a lot. There's so much to unpack there. I mean, just from the standpoint, like you said, if God wanted us to have masks on our face, we probably would. But He's built an innate immune system in our body, and it's there for a reason. But we have to be good stewards of that, and be good stewards of our body, take care of it so it can do what it's supposed to do. Then on top of that, like you were saying, from the social implications, I mean, I was just talking to a lady at a chamber meeting that I was involved in, and her job is in like a child sex trafficking or sex where they have child abuse and things like that, sexual child abuse. And so that's what she does. And she was talking about, because of the lockdowns and because of all this, the percentage of people that get sexual abuse are people that are in their home from other family members, and it's skyrocketed dramatically. So we look at all these different things: the stress, the anxiety, and then the sexual abuse. You have, alcoholism and all these other side effects that you just really aren't being talked about from the other side of the view. And so we're not looking at all of these different things, and all of these aspects create, like I said, all the stress really impairs your immune system and your body's ability to fight off infections. And so you couldn't have said it better. I think those are great points.
Right, and I think being left at home, isolated at home to our own devices, allows vices to perhaps take over in our life. I mean, you may not be like me, but I can do things that perhaps I'm not supposed to do. It's easy for me to go out and have a good time and perhaps drink one too many, or to, do other things like that. And if I'm just sitting at home by myself all the time, there's no one around to help me with that.
Yeah.
And so if I'm left to my own devices, vices start to creep in.
Yeah.
And things like that can start to creep into your life and make life worse. But I think one thing that you mentioned that I think about all the time is fear. Like, there's a lot of fear out there right now, and perhaps it's good to be afraid of a virus that we don't know a whole lot about, but to be afraid of one another. I've been shopping, I've been around people where you can tell they jump back if you get too close. And so they're literally afraid of other people. And if you can't reach out and make a connection, if you can't interact with one another, because it's good to interact with strangers sometimes. If you haven't done it, make a habit of that.
Just a good old handshake.
It's good to interact with strangers sometimes.
See, it brings joy, laughter.
That's right. And so if we are afraid of one another and literally don't want to get together, that could have long-term effects that last long past I may get a virus that has a 99.7% chance of recovery. Don't you think?
I agree. Hopefully this helps, guys. We just, like I said, wanted to give you some common sense. Just look at it from a different perspective, and hopefully this helps you. We'll put some links in the description below of some of the stuff that we talked about, maybe some of the research. There's a great book by Dr. Josh Axe called Eat Dirt. It's all about the microbiome, some of that topic that we just talked about. But with that said, we'll leave all that. Do you have any closing remarks that you want to put?
No, I think I got everything across.
Yeah. So if you guys like this information, feel free to like, subscribe, share this content with others. We'd really appreciate it. And if it's not your thing, that's okay too. But with that said, we're going to peace out. God bless you guys.
Thanks for listening.
See ya.